Hello everybody, my name is Luis. My EdX username is LDagnino. My GitHub username is LuisDagnino. Today's date is 5th of March, 2026. In this presentation I will discuss a cybersecurity incident involving Microsoft. The intrusion began in November 2023 and involved unauthorized access to Microsoft corporate email accounts. I chose this topic because it illustrates important cybersecurity concepts such as authentication attacks, identity management, and privilege escalation. In January 2024, Microsoft revealed that attackers had gained access to some of its internal corporate email systems. The attackers belonged to a group known as Midnight Blizzard, also called APT29 or Cozy Bear. This group is widely believed to be linked to Russian cyber espionage operations. According to Microsoft, the attackers initially gained access in November 2023 and remained inside the environment for several weeks before being detected. They accessed a limited number of email accounts belonging to employees in leadership, legal, and cybersecurity teams. Password spraying. The attackers used a technique called password spraying. Password spraying is an authentication attack where a small number of common passwords are tested across many accounts. Instead of repeatedly attacking one account, the attacker spreads login attempts across many accounts to avoid triggering account lockouts. Because many users still rely on weak passwords, this technique can be effective even against large organizations. Initial access. The attackers identified a legacy non-production test account within Microsoft's environment. This account had a weak password and did not have multi-factor authentication enabled. Without multi-factor authentication, the attackers only needed to guess the password to access the account. Once they successfully logged in, they gained an initial foothold inside Microsoft's environment. Privilege escalation. After compromising the account, the attackers discovered a legacy OAuth application with elevated permissions. OAuth is an authorization framework that allows applications to access services without sharing a password. However, applications with excessive permissions can create security risks. The attackers used this OAuth access to create malicious applications that allowed them to access Microsoft Office 365 email accounts. Impact. Through these permissions, the attackers were able to access several Microsoft employee email inboxes. These included accounts belonging to leadership and members of the cybersecurity and legal teams. Microsoft reported that customer systems were not directly compromised. However, access to internal communications can provide valuable intelligence about security operations. Why the attack worked? The attack succeeded due to several basic security weaknesses. The compromised account had a weak password and no multi-factor authentication. It was also a legacy test account that had not been properly secured or removed. Finally, the OAuth application had excessive permissions that allowed privilege escalation. Security recommendations. Organizations can reduce similar risks by enforcing multi-factor authentication on all accounts. They should also regularly audit and remove unused or legacy accounts. Applications should follow the principle of least privilege and only receive the permissions they require. Monitoring login activity can also help detect attacks earlier. Beyond the initial breach, we must analyze the lateral movement used by Midnight Blizzard. Once inside, they didn't just read emails, they manipulated OAuth permissions to create persistent access. By registering their own malicious applications within Microsoft's environment, they essentially created a backdoor that didn't require a password anymore. This is a sophisticated way of stealing the identity of an application rather than just a user. This brings us to the concept of technical debt. Many organizations leave old, legacy accounts active because they are forgotten. As we see here, these forgotten accounts are the perfect entry point for state-sponsored hackers. It's a reminder that security is as much about cleaning up old systems as it is about installing new ones. Furthermore, we must consider the goal of the attackers. Midnight Blizzard was not looking for money, they were looking for strategic intelligence. By targeting Microsoft's own security and legal teams, they wanted to know how Microsoft detects threats. This allows them to stay invisible in future attacks. This incident forces us to adopt a zero-trust model, where we assume the network is already compromised and every request must be strictly verified. In conclusion, this case shows that the strength of a system is only as good as its oldest link. Protecting our digital world requires constant vigilance over every account, from creation to deletion. Conclusion. The Microsoft Midnight Blizzard breach shows how simple techniques such as password spraying can lead to major security incidents. The attackers exploited weak authentication, legacy accounts, and excessive permissions to gain access to internal data. This case highlights the importance of strong identity and access management in modern cybersecurity. This case also highlights a broader issue discussed in this course: the balance between convenience, security, and privacy on the Internet. As we have seen throughout the course, modern web technologies constantly exchange information between browsers and servers. When users access websites, their browsers may automatically share data such as IP addresses, browser type, operating system, and other technical characteristics. These details can sometimes be used to identify or track users through techniques such as browser fingerprinting. In addition, websites often rely on cookies and tracking mechanisms to maintain sessions, remember users, and analyze behavior on their platforms. While these technologies are necessary for many features of modern web services, they can also raise privacy concerns if the collected data is not properly protected or if it is used for extensive tracking purposes. The Microsoft Midnight Blizzard breach demonstrates how weaknesses in identity systems and authentication can expose sensitive internal information. In this case, attackers exploited a weakly protected account without multi-factor authentication and then escalated their privileges through legacy systems. This allowed them to access internal corporate emails and security-related communications. This incident shows that cybersecurity is not only about defending against complex technical exploits. Often, attacks succeed because of basic weaknesses such as weak passwords, missing security controls, or outdated systems. For organizations, this highlights the importance of implementing strong authentication policies, removing unused or legacy accounts, and following the principle of least privilege when assigning permissions. For individuals, it also reinforces the importance of understanding how digital systems collect, store, and transmit information. Awareness of these mechanisms helps users make better decisions about privacy, authentication practices, and online security. Ultimately, cybersecurity and privacy are closely connected. Protecting digital systems requires both strong technical defenses and an understanding of how information flows across the Internet.